Tell us what your name is.
My name is John R. Alvarado, and I served in Berlin from February of 1986 to February of 1989, 3 years.
Wonderful. Tell us what unit you were in and what was your job title or what was your job?
I belonged to headquarters company, Berlin Brigade. I was part of the G4 Transportation Office, Rail Movements Branch. I was the Chief Movements Officer.
What did that duty entail? What was an actual day like for you?
Well, the duty was commonly known as the U.S. Army duty trains. Okay, so I ran 4 duty trains between Berlin, Frankfurt, Berlin to Bremerhaven, and so one going out, one coming back into Berlin every night, 365 days a year.
Fantastic. And people in the U.S. military would have to take those trains or travel on the Autobahn or fly in during specific corridors, right?
That's correct. The trains we used to get troops out to the field to training out at Bergenhohen, Wildflicken, Grafenwehr. We put them on the trains and they'd go out with their equipment, so separate rail trains. Then we had the separate passenger trains that brought passengers from the West Germany, into Berlin to visit, maybe a weekend or a week or maybe on business on TDY. But and then, of course, to get our own Berlin Brigade soldiers out of the city on leave and out to other areas.
So tell me, how would you rank the assignments that you had in Berlin? Was it a kind of an average assignment? Was it below average or was it better than average?
I think for me as a captain, it was a great assignment. It was a career maker for me, basically. I got told that if you got assigned to Berlin Brigade, you better take the job and you better do a good job because it'll make your career. And I found that to be true. After 30 years, it turned out to be a fact.
Now, you're a member of the Berlin U.S. Military Veterans Association, of course.
Yes.
If you encountered somebody who was like you, a veteran and served in Berlin, who's qualified for membership, but is not a member, why would you tell them to join?
I've thought about that quite a bit, and I think mostly it's the brotherhood that we have. I was just talking to my wife this morning that Lieutenant Colonel Burney served in Vietnam and he was at Hamburger Hill, company commander in Hamburger Hill, and I recognize the name. I know I saw him, but you didn't know who he was. Then he didn't brag about it. It's a brotherhood. We have Colonel Spears that retired as the commander of Spandau prison out there. Again, we don't know who they were. I mean, I didn't, and he was there before me, of course, but it's a brotherhood that ranges back in history, World War II, all the way up until past Vietnam, and then up through 1991.
And you were there towards the end. Was there anything about that period of time that stands out for you?
Well, I look back and I say that wall is going to be here a long time. This communist Russians are going to be in charge for a long time. So it really surprised me when I left in 1989, a year and what was it, maybe 6 months later, maybe not even a whole year because it was 90 when the wall actually came down. And it really surprised me. I was really, very surprised. And I was happy for the people in the East and for the Berliners.
Did you have much contact with Germans over there?
Yes, I did. In my position at the Rail Transportation Office, I had 70 local nationals that worked for me. Plus, I had 26 military that worked for me. So it was an interesting job because I was telling somebody that one of my supervisors at the Rail Transportation Office, Mr. Winters, he was a submarine German U-boat commander in World War II, and then he ended up working for the United States for his whole career after that. So, the history's there. You just have to ask people and they tell you their story.
What do you think Berliners felt about the American presence there?
I think most Berliners loved us there. I think they appreciated the fact that we were there, keeping their city safe. There's always areas where we were not welcome, but it was not. I always felt welcomed by the German people in Berlin. They were very good with us.
People mentioned that there was a contrast between West and East Berlin. Did you sense that contrast, and how would you explain that?
Yes, I did sense that contrast. I went to East Berlin about maybe 5 or 6 times during my tour. And I saw it. I took my family across. They saw it. The drab colors, the poor shopping, the people watch us that lived in East Berlin. They looked at us as, they knew that we were there doing something for the West Berliners that they wish they had. And so it really did make an impact on me. I mean, I remember you were on camera everywhere you went in East Berlin. They had, a way to track you everywhere. And then West Berlin had its share. They came, the Russians would come across and they'd take pictures of us around our work areas. So there is a big contrast I found.
We are not there, U.S. military in Berlin, any longer. Do you think we accomplished what we went there for? Do you think we did a good job?
I think we succeeded. Just like anything else, it takes time to fully understand how well we did that job. But since it's been 30 years since the wall came down. So I look back now and I say there's a big difference. The freedoms that they have, the way the country reunified, and I'd like to be able to go back and visit. But I know that there's been massive changes, so it might not be exactly what I would expect, probably.
Is there anything you would hope that future generations would remember about the military service or your events in Berlin?
Well, I think our youth today, our young men and women that are thinking about military service, they need to consider what we stood for, what Berlin provided freedom for. The American system of government is what kept that section of town free, the city free, and then it divided it in half and then brought it back together. It was just something that I think if you didn't experience it, it's hard to explain to people that we were not just along the Iron Curtain, we were within the Iron Curtain. We were an island of trapped POWs, I guess, in a way, but it really was a career maker for most soldiers,
Well, I appreciate you spending the time talking with us today. Thank you very much, John.
No problem.